Good afternoon and welcome to this month's show. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss progress being made in cloud computing programs within the Department of Defense and the Department of Homeland Security. With me on today's show are Frank Konecki, Chief Technology Officer with U.S. Air Force, Travis Medvin, Program Manager, PMW 270, Navy Commercial Cloud Services, Dr. Edward Mays, Executive Director for the Enterprise Data Management and Engineering Directorate, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Nicholas Spiess, Chief Federal Technologist, Snowflake, Adam Prim, Advisory Solution Consultant at ServiceNow, and Andrew Welshel, Principal Solutions Engineer at Okta. Well, we've really shifted this conversation about cloud computing from, sort of getting there and all the techniques we're using to get there to really what we're doing now that we are there. And that's really refreshing in regards to the functionality and capability that's available in this type of an environment. Frank, you sort of shot out as a cannon over there at the Air Force with Kessel Run and a whole bunch of other activities. Give us the status of what's going on over there at the Air Force regarding cloud computing.
Okay, thanks, Luke. We're doing lots of things. I mean, first of all, let's talk about the applications. Kessel Run was just the start, of how we're doing DevSecOps, but now we have 15 actual software factories existing within the Air Force in such a way that we can actually do this much quicker. So we're going down a path of how fast can you actually generate software for this. And according with that, you want to make sure that you can get your ATO. So we've had fast track ATO system available so that you can get your ATO faster than normal. We are actually also doing continuous monitoring capability, continuous ATOs. So as we've gone further and further along in the process, we've actually developed a way of getting to the cloud faster, because I think we all realize we're going to go to the cloud. The question is, how fast can I get there and how fast can I make a production level application work? Also, besides that, we have Platform One. Platform One is basically a system of tool sets that have been established to actually speed your way to the actual development of the software and everything else associated with it. And then we have, of course, data. We have our data system, our data thing called Vault, which is basically our data center capabilities. And we're using a lot of that to actually do, data analytics and everything else. And then we get into the AI ML work. We already have that going right now. We have various processes. We have various, in fact, we have an agreement with MIT to actually do some work in the AI arena. So we're doing various applications and prototypes right now. And we also have a piece of quantum in there too, that we're doing some quantum work that's associated with AI for weather. So as we progress farther and farther along the path here, we actually are using cloud in a very different way than just throwing some applications out there that are web servers and things. We're actually doing some real work against mission right now.
Sure, no longer the lift and shift. You're really starting to move up the value chain and take advantage of that massive capability that's out there to do some really important work. Yep. Travis, how about over at Navy? I can't help but see the commercial cloud services in your title there. I thought that was interesting. Give us a state of play at the Navy in regards to cloud computing.
Thanks, Luke. I think the big things that we've been getting after is, we learned a lot of lessons from Kessel Run, and we started down our own CI/CD DevSecOps. So currently we have 3 pipelines in production that we're looking at supporting how those go into platforms. I think the big thing that we've learned over the first couple of years of trying to do the lift and shift that you talked about was going into more of an integrated solution and trying to skate where the puck is. So when we're trying to land different things such as IL-6 and what we're doing with the mission owners out on ships and the embarkables with the Marine Corps, it's really important that we look at that integration aspect. So some of the efforts that we're doing in the IL-6 arena, some of the efforts that we're doing with DDIL and our identity strategy has really been pushing us forward in setting that groundwork for how we're going to go into the DevSecOps arena. So it's not really this march to a shiny object that is DevSecOps and pushing applications, but rather an integrated solution that gets us to the end state where these applications could be supported at the forward deployed edge and support foxhole to flagpole, as well as the embarkables on Navy ships.
Right, really laying those tracks down so that you can drop that capability in there and just start, helping that sailor, that airman, the warfighter. Dr. Edward Mays, CBP, by far the largest component inside the Department of Homeland Security, lots of moving parts going on over there, big footprint that you have across the country, quite frankly, across the globe. How are you all doing in regards to your journey to enabling cloud computing for that important mission?
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me today. And thank you for acknowledging the mission of CBP, securing our nation's borders, supporting trade, supporting travel. We are doing well. I will tell you that we've got about 91 applications in the cloud, and they represent differing levels of complexity. High, medium, low, about 29% high complexity, and about, really about 30% or so for the others. Our journey has been really, really good, and we've made progress in that. We started slow. We looked at, how do we migrate? We looked at the ATO process, and we've followed, cloud first, and we've also implemented, cloud smart. So where we are now is looking at how we bring the architectures together, how we do things in a standardized process to include all of our monitoring. And these are mission apps that we're talking about. So, it is really about driving that value proposition, getting speed to market, getting what's needed to our customer base. And we've done a really good job of that. What we're going to focus on as we move forward is, how do we look at the system holistically, not just the applications, but also the acquisition, also the training and education of our personnel, because cloud actually means that we really have to look at what we're doing from the perspective of human-centered design as well. So we're pulling all of that together. We're also looking at AI and how do we figure out problems before they happen? How do we build our networks better? How do we make throughput better? So we are on a great journey. We've done a lot of good work, and we've got about another literally 200 or so applications that we are going to be migrating to the cloud. We're looking at a multi-cloud and hybrid cloud approach. And I think that at the end of the day, we're going to find that what we're doing is really transformational for the organization and really bring best value to our customer base. I mean, just the ability to move from CapEx to OpEx is really huge. I mean, right now I'm running both a data center and cloud applications, but at some point, as we transfer from the data center to the cloud, less data center will be required, and I should start to see some real value for our customer, as we're seeing in some examples now.
Sure, just really focusing on that mission. I love how the conversation has gone away from, hey, can I get from a moderate to a high, or can I get from a level 5 to from a level 4 to a level 5, to really talking about AI and some of these other things. But I think it's super important. Well, this is a great segue into Snowflake, right? Nicholas, you guys are striped across these agencies, seeing a lot of different things. What's the state of play from where Snowflake's standpoint in regards to the use of this capability to enable these very important missions?
Yeah, thanks, Luke, and thanks for having me again. Always great to see you guys on an afternoon. Going back to what Frank and Travis and Dr. Mays have all said, the trend is very, very positive. It used to be a couple of years ago, we talked about IT modernization and cloud migrations. It was kind of take your VMware machines that were running in your data center, move them up to the cloud, roll the credits, right? We had done it, it was over. We're seeing a big shift now. Folks are starting to build software as a service applications. People are building dedicated applications for the cloud, using cloud architectures and cloud best practices. And more to the point, I'm going to go back to Frank really quickly, building on the ATO process, building on those security trends that have been, I'll say annoying to a lot of vendors, have been difficult for a lot of vendors. We're moving into the next version of cloud, I think, for a lot of the Department of Defense, a lot of the federal agencies, where it's getting easier to get ATOs, it's getting easier to build custom applications that really are catered to the mission, and it's getting easier to get your hands on cloud dedicated technologies that make that mission possible.
Right. I'm smiling because I have the noise of ATO in a day rattling around in my head. But I think what is really important is, that stuff's just becoming, somewhat table stakes. And we're really talking about, okay, how do we enable that mission using these capabilities that are available to us and doing it very quickly. Adam, how about at ServiceNow? Once again, a great platform, sort of organically built and engineered for the cloud, and providing some fantastic capabilities across the various departments and agencies. What's the state of the state out there?
Yeah, thanks for having me, Luke. Yes, so ServiceNow is a workflow automation platform. I'd sort of like to take a programmatic approach to answering this question. When you think about measuring progress, it's very hard to do that in any discussion without a series of milestones and achievements. So when I think about DoD and measuring progress of cloud computing, I break it into 4 general phases. I think the phase 1 was the policy, right? And this is 4 or 5 years ago. And I think back when I was a support contractor within the Navy, there was a cloud first strategy put forward. I think that eventually got signed in 2017. But that policy in short said, hey, if you're a program office and you have technology requirements, you must look towards cloud technologies first. And if the requirements aren't executable by those technologies, then you can look sort of in-house to the GOTS applications and systems. So that is an absolute necessity and an important step. But you'll also notice there's not a lot of direction in there. So what happens is that you move into phase 2, which is sort of the execution or the governance phase. I can't tell you how many customer conversations I had 3-4 years ago where they said, Adam, I need to get towards this cloud first policy, but I have no idea how to get there. And so at that point, you have organizations like Travis's NCCS, PMW 270, and other government members probably on this panel saying, we've got to put in place the necessary tools to allow people to leverage cloud computing. I'm thinking specifically of things like having a standardized, centralized contracting model, some governance around who's using what, and why, how much are they using, and of course, a good understanding and visibility into the costs. Then you move into adoption, phase 3, right? So just because these technologies are available doesn't mean people are using them. And maybe that's because people don't know that they have access to them, or maybe there's special circumstances, right? Things are a little bit harder on SIPR, for example. But I will say 4 years ago, when I went to work, I rarely used cloud commercial technology. Today, it's hard to imagine a life without it. So it's here. And then we roll into phase 4, the final, and this is where I think that really you're seeing the ROI in the investments across the DoD. This is where we are today. I think a lot of government agencies that are exploring and using cloud technologies have gotten to that point where they're seeing ROI, whether that's in cost savings, schedule efficiencies, things like that. But I think, with regards to how ROI over time occurs, it's generally only improves when you're thinking about cloud technologies.
100%. And another part of that ROI is time to market, right? Just being able to have that functionality available, quite frankly, sometimes at a moment's notice from an operational standpoint, super important for all these agencies to have that. Andrew, how about at Okta? You can't put this thing together and enable this capability without some of the types of technology that Okta provides. Well, what are you seeing out there as far as across the interagency these days?
Yes, thank you, Luke. And we're, especially from a progress outlook, we're seeing two big things happening, kind of closely related. One of them is even just a metrics when you're looking at FedRAMP and those programs. Certainly a massive number of additional programs available. So just from a progress perspective, that's thoroughly enabling much more agencies to take those services on much more quickly, right? And then the other observation we've seen at an agency and activity level is really kind of a changing of the types of programs. And this is a really exciting space in that it used to be we would see at Okta identity projects that would start out really as a pilot. We knew there might be some more activity later on, but no one really knew. But now there's much more mission-focused applications and core mission programs that are going to the cloud now. So it's a really exciting time to see that transition from just kind of stepping into the water a little bit to doing a full mile swim across the ocean. So
right now I'm sort of fully realized as far as my wiring, so to speak. I've got all my my plumbing in place, and I'm able to now just do a low code, no code, or an organic build in that environment. Know it's going to be secure. Know the availability of the ID management, et cetera. All those table stakes, if you will, hardened and brought together. Super important. Travis, we like to talk about a specific program. Can you give us an example of a specific program that you all are implementing, have implemented, or in the planning stages of implementing in regards to cloud capability, sort of cloud native, if you will, and enabling that your mission there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the highlights over this past year was our fleet and weather centers. We were able to accelerate our high high performance cloud computing to support their weather modeling for real-time mission data as it relates to the hurricanes and during the hurricane season. Some of the benefits that we saw to that were one, the near real-time ability to help make those decisions of impacts to those folks in that area, but also as it relates to a lot of the conversation today was ROI. What we saw was millions of dollars annually. What it took to run these models on-prem is now something that becomes scalable, and that you could start to surge that requirement to get a more impactful data that's costing thousands of dollars a month versus millions of dollars annually. That was one of the greatest things that we saw, and you know, it's something that we hope to springboard on as we're starting to do more models for you know, machine learning and AI as it starts to look at the networks and how we support the networks in the future. But this was the springboard for that effort.
Right, fantastic use case, and it goes both ways, right? All of a sudden, I can scale way up and grab a whole bunch of computing and make it instantly available, and then I can shut it back down when I'm not using it, right? Which is, you know, there's some of the beauty of this type of technology. Adam, how about at ServiceNow? Give us an example of one area that you all have been able to implement a capability that's really sort of, you know, knocked it dead in regards to ringing the bell for the agency.
Yeah, sure. You know, we're coming off a day of honor for our veterans. So I just want to say a quick thank you to all servicemen and women out there. And to that end, I'd like to speak to a specific use case with how we're leveraging ServiceNow to help the lives of the servicemen and women and their families. So almost let's decouple IT for a minute and just talk about actual impact to those people. You know, we feel that's pretty special. I'm going to talk about a use case within the Army's government managed housing. So our soldiers, right, and their families are deployed all over the world, right, and they live in houses that are generally managed by people other than themselves. They're managed by third parties, but also the government. And what we saw was a trend in an experience, the delays of addressing house maintenance issues, just like any other homeowner would, right? You've got leaky roofs, you got electrical issues, you got to deal with home repairs. And so they didn't have the control because it's government owned. So a lot of these things were happening over a very long period of time. And this sort of, you know, this reached Congress. It turned into a couple investigative reports. And, you know, you think about it, they started doing assessments on whether, you know, is this what we want our soldiers to be thinking about when they're getting trained or when they're deployed? Things back home. They don't want to be thinking about that. And so ServiceNow came in with a great story, a great solution. The first phase is being able to allow the soldiers and their families to enter housing related cases within our customer service management to check status from all over the world, right? This gives great transparency and visibility within the Army to make sure that these people are taken care of. Subsequent phases are going to include field service management, so making sure that proper supplies and inventory is there for resolving these calls. I also love the fact that, you know, we're tackling CAC authentication needs for people that need it, as well as providing a more public portal facing for family members for, you know, without CACs, right? Because, you know, not everybody has a CAC and not everybody has a need for a CAC, but everyone has the ability to log a case, right? And that portal is being delivered through our mobile app. So we love impacting families outside of the IT world. So we love that use case.
Fantastic use case and a great example of using this capability and making it available sort of worldwide, if you will, which is fantastic. Glad to hear that. All right, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about cloud computing at DoD and Department of Homeland Security. And we were just talking about specific programs. I'm going to throw it over to you, Frank, and ask you to give us an example of a specific program. We talked at the top about Kessel Run and mentioned that. I thought maybe you give just a few moments on what Kessel Run is for those that might not know what that fantastic program is.
Sure. Kessel Run was our first foray into SecDevOps. And the reason why it was first, because we had an issue with modernizing the Air Operations Center. And so we said, what could we effectively, quickly do as opposed to, you know, funding billions of dollars and a long time to actually get things done? So we said, let's try something modern. What was an industry for a long time, especially where I came from, you know, it was normal to do agile programming and everything else. So it's like, let's try this. And so we got together with a group of airmen that would not really programmers per se. They had programming experience and they seem to have the aptitude for doing it. And we actually did a module. The module was aircraft refueling scheduling. They used to do this basically on a whiteboard. It used to take them 12 to 14 hours to actually do this every day, as opposed to doing it automated. So we said, let's try to do this. This is a win-win situation. If it doesn't work, well, they can still go back to the whiteboard, but otherwise, this is an automation capability. And it works so successfully. We did it within like 3 to 6 months, which was unheard of before, especially when people who did not have any experience in doing this delivered it, and it was a success. And we've actually built upon that to actually save sufficiently enough money for fuel costs. In fact, we actually have millions of dollars in fuel cost savings now because of the way they've actually modernized that application. So that's one of the major things that we started off with DevSecOps. And now I said, we have 15 software centers right now doing this. Now, application-wise, yes, yes, Luke.
Incredible to hear this.
I mean, so that our major programs are actually using DevSecOps now. And I do mean our major billion-dollar programs are doing this now, just to let you know, because it's been so effective that we can see that we get capabilities out that we can actually look at rather quickly. And you're going to see that's going to be the model, I think, that, it's the model the Air Force is going for, without a doubt.
I love it. And taking that sort of organic, and I love the idea that you started with something simple, obviously huge impact. And now, as I understand, you have airmen and airwomen out there, coding DevSecOps in this environment and creating some great capabilities for the folks in the Air Force, which is fantastic.
We actually established Digital University, which is also a cloud-based effort to actually train these people, who may have an aptitude that don't know they have an aptitude. And if they pass certain courses, they can actually look at what they can actually maybe become a member of the Kessel Run organization and actually do this programming. So we're trying to pull up talent management from the bottom and say, okay, if you have an aptitude, maybe you should be in this, endeavor.
Fantastic. Came in thinking they were going to fly an aircraft and they end up being a super coder. That's unbelievable.
Right.
Andrew, how about at Okta? Give us an example. You're sort of, again, striped across the interagency. You're seeing a lot of different activities. Give us an example where you all have been involved in a program that really has, enabled the mission in a modern manner, if you will.
Yeah. So great question there. And, noting, great time. We kind of recently passed Veterans Day. It actually happened. The announcement came out last year, so it's actually public press on the Apple website and other places. There's a great use case with the Veterans VA where they actually made records available directly to people's phones. So if people don't know about this, kind of a great thing to know is that you can actually go on your phone. You can go to the health app. You can just type in Veterans Administration or Affairs, and then as you do the search, it'll actually pull up a source provider. Now, obviously, you don't want to provide that data unsecured, but one of the things that is this is kind of one example that is being replicated across other use cases, even for some active duty members for training purposes. But the concept is the same, is essentially get the power of this data in individuals' hands on their mobile devices, and then secure that data by securing APIs. And really you secure those APIs by securing their identity on that device. So it becomes very powerful, and something we've seen been able to replicate in some other agencies and services.
Very powerful and very functional. And I would imagine that's something that can be used globally, which is fantastic, right? I'm glad to hear that. Very pleased to see how we're supporting those veterans. Ed Mays, how about over at CBP? Can you give us a specific example? You top lined a whole bunch of activity you all have going on over there. Give us one example of where you all have implemented this capability and really, turned on the mission in regards to functionality.
Absolutely. First of all, the Automated Commercial Environment, or ACE, produces and supports cargo processing for the U.S. and processes about $11.1 billion in trade to the tune of about $2.4 trillion a year. So ACE is very important to the U.S. in terms of our economy. after adopting, the CI/CD pipeline, SecDevOps, we were able to make quick changes in ACE. And as you notice, there's been a lot of policy changes on tariffs. So this has really helped us to move in a dynamic manner and move quickly. And in support of that, we've also moved our mainframe out of the data center, and we moved to mainframe as a service in the cloud. And what that allowed us to do was to save about $10 million a year that we were able to reinvest into our overall cloud program. So that's one example. Another more recent example is if you look at COVID-19, using low code, no code kind of apps to help us with contact tracing and help us to track building sanitization and such. So the cloud has been very, very beneficial to us and allowed us to bring value to our customers very, very quickly.
Interesting use case with the mainframe as a service, and that's great where you're able to wring that cost out and then repurpose that, replow that into some of these other capabilities. Nick, I would imagine that you have bushels full of use cases there at Snowflake. Give us one good one where you all have been able to, an agency, partner with an agency and really enable that capability at the agency.
Yeah, thanks, Luke. I mean, first of all, I want to lead off with, I was 10 years active duty in the Air Force. And at one point I
Thank
wrote
you for your service.
Yeah, absolutely. It was great. I had a great time. I spent 10 years there trying to get code approved to translate MGRS grid systems into lat long in the Air Force Intel community. And that app never got an ATO, and it was 5 lines of code. So Frank, I applaud what the Air Force is doing today with some of your efforts. A lot of what comes down in the cloud for Snowflake's perspective is our big move to what we call data cloud. I've got a lot of examples, but I want to kind of touch very high level on the data sharing and collaboration side. We just talked about where things are going in cloud. I think the next big step, as well as specific programs and areas where these are very, very useful, to go back to Mr. May's point with the ACE program. The ACE program collaborates with a lot of other government agencies, and being able to share and collaborate in real time with each other's data is sort of the next step in the single source of truth. We always talk about single source of truth, but I think for a lot of us, our single source of truth is our truth based on our data and not necessarily the data from the subject matter experts who know that best. So when I think about a specific program or difference that we could really bring to bear with cloud technology, it's around the collaboration of data and getting that single source of truth, the truth, not just my truth.
Interesting, and you raise a very good point about sort of that cross collaboration, and no question that I can't imagine that the interconnectivity of ACE with all these other agencies and the trading public at large, right? I think I heard trillion with a T there that Edward said. That's extremely impressive. Frank, we like to talk about priorities, and would love to hear your top 2 priorities for this coming year. What are you focused on in regards to, enabling capabilities in this cloud environment?
Just 2? Okay.
Well, yeah, I know we could go. Yeah, I try to keep it to 2 because I know there's a lot of them.
First of all, I think zero trust. We're trying to do zero trust capabilities. And a lot of the reasons why is because since we're all working at home on various devices right now, the idea is how can I connect securely to the applications that are existing in the clouds right now. So I think zero trust is at the paramount of how we actually want to progress, especially for the new normal. If we're going to have multiple people working at home for long periods of time, we need to figure out the best way and secure way of getting into the apps. But the second one I think is probably we're trying to do an enterprise ICAM system right now too. And I think that's going to be necessary because we've gone down the path and zero trust depends upon ICAM anyways. And so as we look forward to how we're going to do this, we're trying to figure out exactly what do we mean, especially since for an enterprise solution, we're going to have to support not only the centralized capability, but we also have all the bases out there that have capabilities that are going to be DIL environments if necessary when the network gets interrupted. And so we're looking at how can we actually do this for an enterprise and collaborate everything together so we don't have that, multiple ICAMs existing everywhere besides different governance models. So I think those are the 2 priorities we're going to go forward with. They're all cloud-based, of course, and necessary to actually do things effectively.
Yeah, and do things efficiently in that environment gets, hybrid cloud, multi-cloud environment gets really complex all of a sudden, very powerful, but very complex. And you certainly need a an architecture, zero trust architecture, if you will, to enable that thoughtfully. And of course, identity management becomes a key cornerstone of that. Speaking of which, Andrew, let's talk about priorities. Sort of what are you getting from the federal agencies, maybe from the public sector, in regards to the priorities that they're focusing on, top two?
Yes, thank you. So the top two that definitely came to mind, one of them reflecting Frank's note there was zero trust. And a lot of what we're also doing is seeing some maturation in that space. NIST is getting out some great guidance out there, and we're seeing a lot of opportunities to align identity to that guidance and really make it easier and faster for government agencies to deploy zero trust, which is certainly really important to not just have the technology, but to get out there quickly. The second one, which is somewhat closely aligned, but still very important, we're seeing is the importance of API protection as we move to mobile environments, as we move to even IoT and some more advanced data warehousing and data analytics services. Be able to protect those APIs, that data plumbing is going to be more and more crucial. So we're seeing a lot of activity in that space. And it does kind of come back down to zero trust, even for that data and APIs, in order to make sure it's the right person accessing the right resource and the right security controls and context. So
no doubt about it. And, those APIs become very important. No doubt in Ed's example that I was giving earlier, right? That's machine to machine, but you have to authenticate that, and it's got to be done real time. Ed, how about you as far as priorities there at CBP? Top two, you've got a lot of stuff going on there, it sounds like. What are your top two that you want to focus on over the course of the next year?
Well, I'll try. Our top two are, again, identity and access management, as you just mentioned, looking at zero trust. But the other thing that we're looking at that's really critical is, I call it auto provisioning. And that's auto provisioning at the org account level. If you're looking at an Amazon, it's looking at the auto provisioning at the user and system account level. And it's also tying all that together. I mean, we started, our cloud work in a sort of entrepreneurial fashion. So, we had a little bit of, I'll call it disjointed incrementalism. Now we're pulling all that together, so it'll be a streamlined, seamless process. That's one of our biggest goals this year, along with including in that the cloud tagging piece to ensure that we can track our costs properly. That's been a challenge, and we plan to try and solve that as a top priority.
Interesting. And I love that term, digital incrementalism. I think I'm going to call Webster on that one. But really important to focus on these various activities so you can turn that on very quickly and do it in an automated way, right? You're never going to get to ATO in a day or whatever it is you're trying to do there unless you can do that in an automated fashion. Super important to be able to enable that capability. Adam, what are your customers telling you that they need in regards to, Adam at ServiceNow, what are your customers telling you that they need as far as priorities for this year?
Yeah, I'm with Frank. I had about 4 or 5 that I could tee up, but I'll just focus on the 2.
Of course.
No, I'll start with, automation and what a lot of Navy leadership is deeming, they call it relentless automation. So look, processes continue to be complex, especially in the DoD. There's a whole lot of approvals and checks and things like that need to happen from an acquisition and programmatic perspective, to the point where they can't be executed without some level of automation. I'm looking to continue conversations with those complex workflows. The net of all this, of course, is people want to come into work and work on the things that that inspire them, right? That make them innovate. They don't want to have to deal with the stuff that we have to do, right? There's things we want to do at work. There's things that we have to do at work. And in many cases, we're finding out that there are ways that in which our platform can sort of automate the things that have to happen and allow the workers to do the things that inspire them. I think the second focus is integrations. And so I'll use a specific case in point. So we have within the Navy, there's an effort going on called MPT&E, Manpower, Personnel Training and Education. This is a collective, an ecosystem of applications. There's 55 of them, and they sometimes overlap in their purpose. And some of them are written in COBOL and Fortran. They're 30 years old and they can't be supported anymore. So this is a good story in the sense of they're trying to get from 55 down to a few sort of platform technologies to do all the things that those 55 did. The problem when you're doing this, though, is if you end up with your 3 technologies and those technologies can't talk to each other, what was the point of all that? And so, when technology companies can band together to complement each other, everybody wins, especially the end user. And so that's one of the things that I would really like to focus on this year.
Fantastic, and very important. Again, automating, really important to be able to do that, right? And so that you can just take that off the table and then focus on the mission at hand, if you will. Travis, how about at the Navy in regards to top 2 priorities that you have to focus on this year?
So first of all, I'd like to say is I'm doing everything everybody else is doing, so I'm not going to repeat that and say that identity is a huge effort for us. One of the big things that is coming up for us is we did an organizational realignment that we're standing up the Navy's first service managed organization. So back in May, we disbanded what was PEO EIS, Enterprise Information Services, and turned it into PEO Digital Enterprise Services. So you mentioned earlier about services at the end of my name. What we're really doing is putting a focus on transitioning our organization into a service managed organization and providing those services. So this just isn't for Navy or a rebranding of PMW 205. This is really shifting the way that we offer services today for Department of Navy, because second part of that is a unification effort with the Marine Corps and the Systems Command and an integration into the PEO digital family and how we can provide those services at a department level versus focusing on a Navy and Marine Corps to start creating some of those efficiencies. The second piece that is a priority for us is expanding our relationship through our digital marketplace services. So one of the big service deliveries for that will be the infrastructure as code. Frank had mentioned it and Ed had talked about it. What we've really worked with, the strong partnership with Adam Prem, who's online here, is infrastructure code in 6 minutes or 6 clicks, excuse me. So what we've done is worked over the past year to get us to a place where we're using infrastructure code and being able to deliver that to the mission owner in under 6 clicks. And this means a guardrailed, templated environment that mission owners can get out and start their cloud journey. And that's one of the things that we really realize is we have to get mission owners out and comfortable in how they can do it, because we can't expect a single organization to do all of the cloud work. We need to really leverage the communities of interest. So we have to lower the barrier of entry for them getting there. And infrastructure as code is a key enabler of that.
Incredible that, almost at the mission operator level, that can provision a capability that quickly with 6 simple clicks. I love it. All right, we're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We're talking about cloud computing at the Department of Defense and Department of Homeland Security. We were just talking about priorities and a lot of them out there, and we wanted to focus on just a couple. Nicholas, can you give us a couple of examples, a couple of priorities that your customer base is giving to you that they want you to focus your attention on to deliver these capabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Luke. We're building a lot of applications on Snowflake, and a lot of our customers have asked us to help them build applications on Snowflake. We've got a really great partner in Active Cyber that has built an identity and access management system that uses Okta as a front end to detect logins, multi-factor authentications, those kinds of things, and then take all of those logs and put that into Snowflake for an artificial intelligence machine learning workload to notify them of certain different patterns in logins that might be extraneous or to support the no trust, zero trust environments. And then that triggers actions in ServiceNow to create tickets to lock out an account or to change or force a multi-factor authentication event. So the first thing we're really trying to do is build some solid applications on top of Snowflake. We're one of the few technologies that can really scale to keep up with technologies like Okta and like ServiceNow, who really have had a head start in the industry, just building out that massive cloud computing infrastructure. The second thing that I really want to focus on, and that a lot of our customers are doing, is bringing all of the data engineering and data science into the same place. One of the advantages that we have is being able to do a lot of those things and build out extremely complicated data pipelines using just ANSI SQL, a simple programming language that anybody can learn in a couple of afternoons. And a lot of DBAs already know this stuff. And data scientists spend over 80% of their time, and I know most statistics are made up on the spot, but over 80% of their time refining data and getting it ready for data science and machine learning workflows. Snowflake aims to take that down quite a large step by building that refined pipeline into the product using SQL and streams and tasks very efficiently and effectively.
So once again, we want to take these barriers off the table so a data scientist can do data science work. Love this next question we're going to bring up, and that is lessons learned. Frank, I'm gonna start with you. You all have been at this journey. You were an early adopter, and what would be a lesson learned out there? Give us one that you would want to share with the audience in regards to just stuff to think about as they go on this journey.
The application owners have to be involved. I think that's one of the processes. I mean, before we used to give it to vendors, and vendors would just do it and they deliver something and we'd say, hey, that's not right. So I think that we learned that the application owners have to be involved as well as the security people at the same time. I think that's essential for getting an application out, especially if you're doing DevSecOps. So yeah, you have to do that. And of course, you have to look at how the application owner can actually fund this and sustain it. That's the other thing, because as we develop, no-low codes and everything else, as well as RPA work, the issue becomes, okay, I got it, but how am I going to sustain it? So you got to look at it from the viewpoint of how you build it and then how you sustain it. And I think those are the two main areas besides involving everybody involved in the process.
Absolutely. Security's got to be there day one. Customer must be involved day one. Travis, how about at Navy? Sort of top lesson learned that you'd like to share?
I think the big thing for us was don't try and solve it all. I think there's a connotation about folks doing things in a centralized fashion that creates this idea that we're trying to solve it all. I think the big thing that we've done and learned over the past couple of years is to embrace the centers of excellence and the communities of interest that have led the way in certain things. So it's not just a centralized effort, but really exposing and giving the opportunity for folks that have been doing things like AI and ML in the air community for a while, or in the NAVC doing machine learning on their logistics and how they do shipboard maintenance. It's really about creating that culture that you could start to bring forward folks that have done this in the past, and turning that into an enterprise service or an enterprise delivery that people can benefit from the excellence of their work. I would say also the second part is we've touched on it a lot lightly, but it's not just a technology. We need the entire community. So we need the acquisition community. We need the legal community. We need everybody to come up for how IT is being delivered today. And it's really in that workforce development, we can't solely focus on the engineers and developers. We have to think about the fact of the program managers who are budgeting, how legal's looking at contracts, and how we deal with folks. So it really is a cultural alignment across the entire company spectrum by just focusing on a technology aspect and delivery.
The ecosystem really does need to come together. Ed, top lesson learned, your observation as you're on this journey.
Well, I think the key thing for all of us is that we need to take an agile approach to everything via a holistic manner. When we look at things like was mentioned earlier, looking at hybrid cloud or governance or security, to include the procurement, the training, reskilling, upskilling. I mean, you really have to know where you want to go, what you want to be, to build, that road there, that roadmap. If you don't do that, you can wind up anywhere. You got to know where you want to end up. And I think that allows you to build it out via an agile fashion and really deliver value to your customer.
Yeah, I mean, this capability gives you a lot of options. That's the good news. And the challenge is it gives you a lot of options, and you got to get laser focused, really have a North Star. All right, we're going to wrap it up with this last question. And this one's about sort of painting a picture of the future, if you will. So we'd like each of you to take just a minute or two and tell us, what's it look like in a couple of years? So we'll start with you, Andrew, at Okta. What's it look like? What are you guys cooking up there? What are your customers telling you that they need you to do? And what do you envision over the course of the next couple of years?
I think the biggest vision here is, and I do believe is consistent with both cross value to commercial enterprises, but definitely within federal customers, is fundamentally the seamless user experience, right? And certainly in the commercial space, it's a little bit different because they have different missions, but it really comes down to speed, right? And there's two elements to that. One, as you have the seamless user experience to get to applications quickly, that certainly achieves the mission. But as you can do that and you have the tools, and there's great stories and pieces of information about how people are able to use these tools. But as you're able to use the tools for identity access and other things to speed that user experience and get people into and out of applications, to accelerate the authentication authorization process, that really will both get users on board, increase the adoption to the cloud, as well as keep them secure in the cloud.
Speed to market, very important. Adam, how about at ServiceNow? What does it look like in a couple of years? You guys have done infrastructure capabilities, HR capabilities. What's next for ServiceNow?
I love this question because if it's one thing my mom taught me, is when you're predicting the future of IT, just watch a couple episodes of Star Trek and you'll find your answer.
There you go.
We've got the communicators, we've got stun guns, we've got everything needed. We're just waiting for holodecks and warp drives, I think, at this point. No, but seriously, I'm doubling down on AI and ML. People need to remember that with those applications or with that capability, you can't just drop in AI and ML and expect to see any gains. AI and ML only work because you have massive amounts of data that allow machines to find patterns in that data and create models around that data. So that started. So, I think something in the realm of like 2 trillion gigabytes of data is created every day. In 2020, I've heard 40 zettabytes will be created. I had to research that. That's 40 with 20 zeros after it. And so the access to data continues to grow, and as we continue to have and harness that data, you're going to start seeing a lot of benefits with AI and ML. And how will that be manifested? Well, it's going to be within, for the DoD, it's going to be smart bases. We're doing a lot of, DoD and the Navy and the Marine Corps are really focusing on 5G automation, inventory warehousing, sort of getting to where Amazon and Walmart have been for years. You're going to see things like, supervised autonomous everything. And, I think the explosion of new applications, we started off, talking a little bit about, I really think we've only scratched the surface on the use cases that cloud computing technologies are bringing. I think as we continue to uncover those use cases and getting into serverless architecture, allowing developers the ability to build things quickly and efficiently, you're going to see an explosion of new apps.
A lot of new capability. Looking forward to it. Nicholas, how about at Snowflake? I can't imagine the things that you all are cooking up there in regards to, the extraction of information and being able to make sound decisions. What's it going to look like?
Yeah, well, I start with, I made a joke earlier, and I started this off by saying that we move our machines into the credits roll. The credits are never going to roll. Don't get discouraged, but things are going to keep moving forward. AI and ML, those large data sets that Adam was talking about, Snowflake's going to keep supporting the architectures and applications that are doing that. For us, it's going to be a lot about pushing the data cloud loop. We really want to get folks collaborating on those data sets. We saw a tremendous amount of success with COVID-19 across the nation, working with state and the federal governments on the COVID-19 pandemic. We're going to keep pushing the data cloud messaging, the data collaboration messaging, and we just hope we get people to listen.
Fantastic. Looking forward to that. Ed, you all are on a journey there. And in a couple of years, you're going to have a lot of that stuff sort of completed. You're going to be building organic capability into the cloud. What's it look like in a couple of years to, a Customs and Border officer? What can they expect to see?
I think they can expect to see a very streamlined, simple user experience that provides the capabilities that they need at the click, of a mouse. That's where we really want to be, delivering that value to the front line and making it easy as possible. So for me, the mantra is automate, 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 and simplify. And building in all the governance that's required, the security, the provisioning, building in on the back end for us, things like ITSM. We've talked about ServiceNow quite a bit. We've talked about Okta kind of a bit with respect to access management and such. but also on the business piece as well, right? Whether it's, technology business management or ITBM, having all those analytic tools on the back end so that not only do we deliver that capability and service, but also that we do it, economically and efficiently and, drive ROI. So for me, it's automate, simplify, and deliver value to our customer on the front line.
And I love the idea of giving them that powerful mobile capability right in their hand there, so to speak, so that they can perform those functions anywhere and everywhere, right? I mean, you guys are very much a mobile workforce.
Absolutely, yes, sir, we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Travis, how about at the Navy? It sounds like you all are full steam ahead. Going at about Mach 2, 100 feet off the deck there. What does it look like in 2 or 3 years in regards to your commercial cloud service capability to your service?
I think it's bigger than just commercial cloud for us. I think it's an integrated environment that supports a mobile and mobility aspect of it on a cloud-enabled network. I think there's a modernization element that goes along with it, and this is what we've been focusing on, and it's going to be a journey over it to support integration from the embarkables on Navy ships and getting those forward deployed. But it starts with the cloud-enabled network. So we have to have a network and transport that supports these workloads being in multiple areas and supporting their transport, the data, and how they achieve that. And that's going to be a journey. So I think the big thing for us is getting to that cloud-enabled network and supporting that mobility and understanding that we do embark and do deploy to forward regions that are going to require some cloud technologies and support for that orchestrated environment.
I would imagine that this cloud technology lends itself very well to that kind of environment. Assuming that you can sort of get to that environment, right, if you will. And I would imagine with 5G and some of these other things, that sort of that super highway is going to be available to allow you all to then exploit this capability on the ships, et cetera, wherever they are across the world.
Oh, absolutely. But I think it extends into understanding how we do that resiliency in forward deployed locations as well. So we need that relationship with the industry partners on how we can exploit that and support our resiliency and continuity of operations. And there's tremendous work being done across all the commercial providers for networking as a service. And I kind of see that as a big piece, and transport as a service as a big piece coming down the pipe to support that.
Resiliency, big deal. Frank, how about at U.S. Air Force? You all have been in full motion over the course of several years here. What's it going to look like in a couple of years from sort of your perch, if you will, looking out at that capability?
We're seeing that it's going to be probably a hyper extension of the commercial clouds and the central centers into our bases in such a way that it's ubiquitous to us if it's in the commercial cloud or it's on the base, because as we start doing the 5G experiments at the depots, we know we have to have micro data centers at those depots. And so it has to be an extension of some of the major ones that are out there, because we cannot send all the information, for example, from the F-35. The download of that information is too large to send across the optical network. It'll jam the network. So we have to load it and process it on the base itself. And so as you look forward to capabilities for the IoT centers and everything else, we're finding that the base level, we have to have extensions of the commercial clouds or any of the major cloud efforts, and it has to be ubiquitous to us. So we don't even know that it's connecting necessarily back and forth, but it has to have that relationships. Nick described some of that too, how you do the connectivity and everything else. And it's going to be that way eventually when we get to it. Biggest
challenge for you as you're embarking on that?
How to pay for it.
Sure, budget always a big deal.
And security, that's the other two. That's
Travis, your biggest challenge?
Resource availability. Where IT lands in the warfighting domain is always a struggle to get those resources to be available to support modernization efforts.
Right, and as these things start to align more to mission enablement, that gets typically a little bit easier. Well, hopefully it will. Ed, top challenge for you?
Well, as everyone said, budget is the #1 challenge, but I'd also like to talk a little bit about procurement, right? Our procurement systems are, pretty much based on, weapon system development, weapon system procurement, those sort of things that we've done in the past as part of our acquisition. But the cloud brings new challenges, right? We're looking at utility consumption-based models. How do you deal with that? And I do know that as we're moving forward, we're working closely with DHS quarters and CBP headquarters in terms of procurement and looking at how do we deliver a sort of procurement platform that will provide the services that we need. Right now, we're looking at something called Enterprise Cloud and Integration Services that should be able to help us with that. We're also standing up an organization called ECS, Enterprise Cloud Services, that would act as a services delivery organization. It's very similar to what I heard about PEO, Digital Enterprise Services as well. So I think that's the biggest challenge for me. How do I deliver those services? And what's my procurement delivery system look like? And how do I get that integration together? I think that's a challenge. We started off very entrepreneurial. Now we really have to, change our worldview and move to this modern world. And how does that operate? And how do we get all these things to operate together?
Yeah, really organize yourself so that you can modernize in a modern way. Well, listen, I want to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to join us for this program. I want to thank all of you, by the way, for your service. I'd like to thank all of the sponsors for supporting us on this show. And I'd also like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And of course, most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience who tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.